Hi, this is Adam Hommey, and you are listening to Awaken Nation with Brad Zollis.
A huge shift is taking place on planet Earth. People seem to be waking up. Tired of the way things used to be, they are creating something brand new and changing the world we live in. My name is Brad Zollis, and I get to sit down with the next generation of idea makers, the disruptors, and the game changers. Everyday people, just like you and me, from all over, who are doing amazing things. Welcome to Awakened Nation.
Adam has been in my life. How long has it been, Adam? We met at a Jim Palmer event back in what, 2013, 14, something like that?
It had to be somewhere around there because the first Dream Business Academy was in 2014. So at latest, we met in person in 2015. It was the absolute latest, but we knew each other before that.
Wow. So we're almost on a decade, my brother. If you don't know who Adam Hommey is, shame on you. He is the astounding secret weapon behind a lot of the brands, the podcasts, and people you see online who are crushing it. And I just admire Adam. He's become a good friend. We've had a cigar and a drink together many times, and he is no nonsense. And I see you now. Which cat is this? He has his cat on right now.
This is Princess Stella Juliana, so I'm going to do my Godfather thing.
Stroke it. Or Dr. Evil, depending on how it goes. Buckle up, folks. I want you to get a pen and paper because we're going to give you a couple of secrets to branding, marketing, getting on podcasts, being a resource for other podcasters as well. I know I do a guest trade all the time. And Adam and I have a love for William Shatner on Boston Legal. So you're going to hear a lot of Brad Zollis.
Adam Hommey.
Brad Zollis.
Adam Hommey.
And those of you who watch Boston Legal, you get the joke.
Yeah.
Anyways, you're going to tell your grandkids you knew Brad Zollis and Adam Hommey. But let's get started, Adam. You are the creator of the Podcast R.E.A.C.H system, which helps people quickly grow their business building podcast and along the way have fun doing it. You and I, we connected years ago, but you sent me some really great guests because you were offering that service as well. And I got to tell you, they are some of my best shows.
Yeah, well, we did a pilot program for a brand called In Demand Expert in 2019, and we ultimately decided not to pursue the guest booking agency route for a couple of reasons. One of which, and really this wasn't the deal breaker, it's just the fact that there are so many agencies out there. If anything, when you have a lot of competition, that's proof of efficacy for your own project. So the presence of competition is often more of a sign you could be there than the absence of competition. But the real reason that we decided to demur on that ultimately is because over the past few years, as I've been predicting, we have been seeing a swing in the pendulum in podcasting power toward the host. We're at a point where there are so many more available and qualified guests than there are active shows with available episodes to book them, that it's more a matter of rising to the top and being seen as somebody who is more bookable than the average person. And I can give you, if you allow me, just a couple quick tips on how to achieve that.
Sure. Go ahead.
First, the big one is it's all in how you name it. You've seen me in the audience before at Jim Palmer's events. You've probably also seen some of my webinars. You've listened to some of my episodes on my shows and various other shows. So you've heard me say that there's this thing that a lot of entrepreneurs have in their business that is killing them, and they need to get rid of it. So it's like, if you need it, you don't need it, you don't want it, get rid of it. It's traffic to your website.
Yeah.
And people look at me like, what? However, I've proven this. Last year, I spoke at Christoph Wyman's Ultimate Speaker Competition right here in Las Vegas, and I posed this question. I asked the audience, what is traffic? What is a website? For all this talk of more traffic to your website, not a single person in the audience could identify either of those terms. So what I urge people to do instead is to attract visitors to their web pages who are in alignment with the 3 Ps of website conversions: pre-qualified, prepped, and pumped. Now pause. You see what I just did there? I mean, of course you want traffic to your website, but everybody's talking about traffic to their website. What I've done is taken the concept and renamed it. Essentially the same thing that Chuck Norris did with his martial arts. He has his own school of martial arts, which is not necessarily anything new under the sun. It's an amalgamation of some of the best practices he learned from studying other schools of art that he combined and added just a little bit of his own discoveries. What makes Chuck Norris's school of art so unique is Chuck Norris.
Yeah.
Seriously, it's the fact that he branded it and he made it special. So the main point I want to share with you in all this, and this is how you stand out among all those other prospective podcast guests, is in how you name it and how you claim it.
Wow.
Yeah,
I like
how
that.
you name it and how you claim it. I'll tell you the other tip, and I can't believe I have to say this in 2023, is take 5 seconds and find out how to get on the show you want to be on. I'm the host of 2 podcasts myself, and it's going on 3. We're launching a 3rd one, believe it or not. My longest running podcast has been on the air for almost 10 years. Brad, you've been on it as well, the Business Creators Radio Show.
Mm-hmm.
The first step to getting on that show is to fill out an application. And I have lost track of how many agency representatives, having been told not to send pitch emails with one-sheets, persist in sending pitch emails with one-sheets. And then after we remind them again of the application, forward the one-sheet to me again and say, hey, did you have a chance to read this?
Yeah.
Here's why I have everybody apply to be on my shows. And this is why we have our podcast reachers. All of our clients set up their shows the same way. It's really simple. The application is not designed to be a bunch of fiery hoops for the folks that jump through. It's actually for the benefit of the guest who wants to be on the show, because it helps them organize their thoughts in such a way where, as a host, I can look at this real quickly and say, oh, that's interesting. I got to have this person.
You know, you were talking about something. People tune in because of you now. I've always tried to get some very high profile guests along with friends and people I meet along the way who are doing something outrageous or extraordinary. But the one thing that I've always prided myself in as a branding expert is I know what my show is about and the type of guests that I have on the show, because that's what my audience wants to hear. Unusual, extraordinary. A deep dive into the extraordinary has been our tagline for 3 years now, 4 years now. And so I think it's incredibly important what you said, and talk about this. Do you get people who you help them develop their tagline and their brand, and they still fight you on it a little bit?
Not really, not too much. We're at the point now. We've actually evolved the Podcast R.E.A.C.H system, which we're rebranding as Launch Your Podcast Fast, to where I write the tagline description for them, and then they sign off on it. I think I have had a couple clients that wanted to change one word. And then there was one who's actually one of our current reachers whose site is under development, who wanted to play more with the description than the tagline. And he had a few suggestions for the description that were all great enhancements. So our process is basically, once you become a client, we sit down and we do a conversation with you. It usually lasts about 60 to 90 minutes, where we get deep into what are the goals of the show, who do you want to have tune in, who do you want to have interview, the reasons why, etc. I take that data and develop a title, tagline, description, and suggested URL for the website, because every podcast should have its own dedicated website, regardless of what streaming service it's hosted under. And I use that data to create your title, tagline, description. So it's usually close to dead on, because I'm using the client's own words that they may or may not remember they even said.
Yeah, I help entrepreneurs write books. And a lot of times I just record it and then transcribe it and then sit down and doctor it up. And sometimes they say something so brilliant, I have to use that as a tagline. And they don't remember saying it. We all go through that. I'm sure. Don't you read stuff you posted like a year ago and you go, hey, wait a minute, that was kind of smart.
That's happened to me. I've also had it where I thought of something, wrote something, said something, and thought, wow, I'm a genius. And then I realized that I've said it like 20 times already.
Yeah. It's like even a broken clock is correct twice a day. So
yeah.
I love what you do. I mean, honestly, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't seen Adam Hommey live in person, one of the things that I admire about you, Adam, is I remember the first time I watched you come up the aisle in Las Vegas to give a speech.
That's right. I remember now. It just came to me. I can see it in my mind. We met at the very first Dream Business Academy hosted by Captain Jim Palmer here in Las Vegas, Nevada, the hottest city in America, which I think is a great place for Dream Business Academies.
Yeah, I agree. And you came
Hi, Jim.
Hey, Jim Palmer. Yeah, he's going to listen to this one. I'm the first one to call him Captain Jim. When he got the boat, he called me up. I think it was like 2 hours later, and we were having a conversation. I go, I'm going to call you Captain Jim now, and I saluted him. And I just had him on the show last season, and he goes, yeah, you were the first one to call me Captain Jim, and I put it in my branding.
So you were the one responsible for all of his brands having to be overhauled.
Yes.
Good.
I'm the one. Because once you
because who do you think managed that?
You. Well, here's the fun part. Those of you who don't know Captain Jim Palmer, he started the Dream Business Academy, and he trains people to create their own dream business, write books, create a business around that brand. But when Jim and Stephanie, his wife, had this dream to move everything onto a boat, their whole life, they sold their house outside of Philadelphia, got this nice, beautiful boat that they could live on, and they fixed it up and started living offshore, traveling up and down the coast. And they took their personal life and turned it into this brand. And so he became Captain Jim Palmer. And life on the sea sometimes wasn't easy. Sometimes he'd fall overboard or do some crazy stuff. The engine would go out, but he included that in his brand. And I'm going to ask you, Adam, how important nowadays is it to get some of your personal life into your brand, into your podcasts, into your books and things?
It's absolutely critical. Going back to the suggestions I gave earlier for rising to the top and getting booked on more podcasts. Remember, number one is how you name it and claim it. Your personality is part of the naming and claiming process.
Right.
Chuck Norris was able to grow his brand of martial arts because he's Chuck Norris.
Right.
Yeah. Let's look at the chain of events. Chuck Norris trained Bob Barker, who in turn whooped Happy Gilmore's ass.
Yeah. And Happy Gilmore deserved it.
Yes. Yeah. You have to remember that little progression right there. So going back to the personality thing, sometimes when I do these videos, I'll be joined by my cats, Princess Alessandra and Princess Stella. And I've heard from a couple people who have said, that's so unprofessional. You got to put your cats in the other room. And I say, they live here and we call it furniture for a reason.
Yep.
They are my production team. In fact, Alessandra's going to be joining us here momentarily, I believe. But,
I love your kitty cats.
Yeah. So that's one example. Captain Jim is another, the man living on a boat. Now I know he sold the boat, and I can't say what it is, but let's just say that he's not planning to stay in that condo he's in for too long. No. He's already plotting his next adventure. I'm not at liberty to say, but there is a next step.
Well, this is the fun part too about Jim. Jim and I are about the same age. He's maybe 5 or 6 years older than me. Yeah. Looks incredible and active. And I got to tell you, he looks younger today than he did back when he was living in a house. The boat changed his life. Everything changed for him. And for those of you who are boomers, especially boomers, if you're looking for your second act right now, or even Gen Xers, because you guys are in your 50s as well, it's time to maybe take a look at what Adam does and grab that zest for life. I mean, look at me. I moved to Denver, and I'm about to move back to Vegas, and I cannot wait. And it's just, life is a continuous adventure. I'm not this kind of person who's sitting on my butt going, you know what, I got to get ready for retirement. It's like, that's not even on my radar.
Oh, God, no. God, no. It's interesting is I've been told for many years, well, I got to get serious and it's time for me to buy a house and settle down and think about my investments. I'm familiar with all of the education around owning a house versus renting an apartment. And, I'm familiar that I'm paying rent on an apartment. I'm getting no equity in return, and I don't care.
Yeah.
I just don't care, because what's important, more important to me is, hey, I don't like the neighborhood, or I decide I want to pick up and move to Denver for a year just to check it out.
Yeah.
Or the management company changes and the new people aren't so great, or the neighborhood goes to hell, whatever it is. Or I just decide I want a different change in scenery, or my day-to-day life shifts to a different part of Las Vegas. And I want to be closer to the new action. My worst case scenario is waiting out a lease.
Yeah.
And those are only 12 months. The fact that almost 9 years ago, I was able to decide, you know what, I really just don't want to be in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania anymore. So when my lease is up here, I'm getting in the car and going to Las Vegas, having the flexibility to just do that. And, I've seen you move from place to place. You used to live in Las Vegas. Then you moved to Denver. Now you're coming back to Las Vegas, and who knows how long you'll be in Vegas after that. You might go back to Denver again. You might go. I mean, I have a friend who actually lives in Henderson here, and he has a girlfriend in, I think it's Coeur d'Alene, Idaho.
Oh, wow.
I think so. I'm not sure, but basically the way they have it worked out is he spends half the time with her and she spends half the time with him. Neither one is in a place where they have to be in their own home 24/7. Plus they travel a lot.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about this. This personal brand means you have to expose a little bit of your personal life. And I say poo-poo to these people who say, oh, that's so unprofessional. I watched this hour-long special where Richard Branson let you see into his life, like how he actually lives. And so him and his wife on a Friday night after a business day that was very long, got and sat down on this yacht, and they had dinner served, and he was sitting there drinking wine and eating sushi and stuff that was prepared by a chef. But he truly, no pun intended, let his hair down. His hair is already down, and sat there, and they had a little, not an argument, but she gave him a critique and he had a critique. And this, you could just see this was a couple that he's super high profile, and he was just, with his wife. And I looked at that and I went, that's a guy who understands how to get people to lean into his brand.
Yeah.
And it's the same if I mention Oprah Winfrey. You've seen her in her curlers and pajamas and her dogs working on stuff. I also start to laugh because one of my favorite episodes of Oprah was she had a part of her apartment in Manhattan renovated, or it was Chicago maybe, renovated, and she had Gail stay there, and she did a special on how she renovated it. And I started laughing, and I looked at my girlfriend, and she's like, what are you laughing about? I said, she got 3 write-offs from that renovation. That's the business mind thinking.
Yes.
But then I look at Tom Brady. I'm writing an article right now about why your personal brand is so important. But Tom Brady let you into his life about how he eats now and how he takes care of his body so that he can still be playing football in his 40s, which most people retire at this time. He just keeps getting better. And this rejuvenation. Now, yes, there's some rough sides to this because now his wife asked him for a divorce. But the reality is we are in a day and age of sit-forward media. Okay. Yes. And when you go to a movie theater, that's sit-back media. Okay. You have to sit back, relax, and entertain me. And we expect high production values. But what you and I work in is sit-forward media.
Correct.
And that is, I can't just stand here and talk and go, hey, Bueller. We have to bring the A game every single time, and that gets people to lean forward, take interest, and want to pet your kitty hats.
Yep, this is Alessandra. She doesn't like to be held. I'm trying to get her to look at the camera at least once.
Hello. Yep. Maybe if I purr.
Oh, no, she wants to get down.
She hates being held. That's funny.
She will follow me around all day long, but she doesn't like to be held. Stella, on the other hand, keeps to herself a lot, but she loves to be cuddled.
Nice. That's funny.
Yeah, it's like whatever elements of a cat personality one doesn't have, the other does.
That's funny.
So if you put them together, there'd be one complete cat.
So let's get back to this vulnerability. You know, I love the fact that you, in your social media, sometimes you'll show a cigar, and those of us who know you now know you're on the balcony, the sun is setting, and Adam has completed a wonderful day of production, because you reward yourself with that cigar at the end of the day. And so people who get to know you, and this is important, know, like, and trust. It takes time to develop a brand following with a character and all that. Talk about that a little bit, because I find that the exciting part, developing that brand story that's around everything.
You know, there are a couple examples. I'm not going to say the names out loud because I don't know these people really well, but there are people I know on Facebook, and I sometimes chat with them on their threads or what have you. I got to get them on my podcast, candidly. And I've noticed a trend of men with really, really attractive girlfriends and wives, and they will show off the wife. Like there's this one guy in particular who will occasionally post a picture of his wife wearing a teddy.
Yeah. Staring
like this. And he'll put that on his stories. He'll say, guys, be back in 30. Then there's another one where he showed a picture his wife had sent him that was her in a wearing her lingerie in a suggestive pose, and superimposed upon it was the grocery list she was sending him to go get. Now, here's the message behind both of those, is they are exemplifying how real couples interact to serve as an example to others of how to be in a fulfilled relationship. So by showing, hey, we're real people, we have real communication styles here. This isn't according to some relationship 101 playbook. This is how it is in the real world. Yeah. You can look at that and say, yeah, that's how it is with me and my significant other too. Or I'd love to have that. I should follow this guy and find out what he's all about. Or I should follow this woman and see how she's gotten herself such a man or such a woman in her life, and why it's just so awesome she can't help but talk about it. So that's one piece of it. That's the summit on the mountain version, as I like to say. Yeah. Then there's the not your finest hour version. Those who follow me closely enough, listen to enough of my episodes, know that I tell stories that about days that weren't exactly my finest hour, or were days or things where I just really screwed it up really badly or did something wrong, even when I knew better. And the reason I share these stories is due to the shame and the attempts to control us that are imposed by those who attempt to set standards that we're supposed to live by. We're not supposed to admit that. Oh, God forbid somebody finds out that I was imperfect. God forbid somebody finds out that I did something that was contrary to the stuff I tell others to do because I had a lapse, as we all do. Or maybe that was the thing that taught me the importance of what I share now.
Right.
What happens is so many folks walk through life or sit through life, whatever it is, feeling repressed because, oh no, what if they found that out about me? Yeah. So when I can share some of those stories, and other podcasters, other influencers can share some of those stories, people in the audience, without necessarily having to say, oh yeah, me too, and this is my story, let me tell you about it, can look to that person and say, yep, I'm a member of that club too. And they join you in your journey so that they can, without having to confess their own tale, have that opportunity to process it, to experience the learning from it that otherwise they would not gain if they were remaining in that state of repression of, oh, I can't even think about this. God forbid somebody finds out about it, reads my mind. When we have those things that were not our finest hour, those are our opportunities to name it, claim it, earn it through burning it.
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
There are two people that come to mind where I crack up. The first one is Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah.
And between him and Jeff Gitomer, they opened the door to swearing. Now,
believe me, I hold that door open.
Yeah. So here's what cracks me up. People are all into brand authenticity nowadays. I can't tell you how many people went to a Gary V, summit and came back and started to swear and started to tell their truth and whatever. And it really wasn't in alignment with their brand because
it was inauthentic. You remember Lindsay Phillips, who we know from Dream Business Academy?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I was on her show and we discussed this very same thing. Can you imagine her saying the word fuck?
No, she is really, really
exactly. She's not that personality. So
Right.
for her to do that would be inauthentic. There's another type of personality that is her authenticity, and that's where she does her best work. And she does, even though she's a competitor of mine, I give her all the credit in the world.
Yeah.
She does fantastic work with what she does in the realm of podcasting. So she does, however, owe me several gallons of authentic Canadian maple syrup that I'm still waiting for. Hi, Lindsay.
I love Lindsay. She has this charm that is so rare nowadays.
Yes.
Everybody's look at me, and she's very she draws you in. She has this sense of innocence that I love. Like I think the first time I met her was at the Dream Business Academy in Philadelphia. I was giving a speech and I said something and she turned red. I was like, that is so rare. And this I was like, oh, I was literally like, oh.
She's got a toughness about her, and she'll hit back, but she just doesn't say the F word. It's just outside of her character.
Right. Well, I noticed all these people coming back from Gary V's seminars and they just started swearing. And these were people that were working in, let's say, finances and all these other areas where you just don't swear. And they're just like, yeah, this is what I do now, and they just over the top because they saw Gary do it. You have to find your own tone of voice, your own way about you. I know people, and we're going to bring up our good mutual friend, Rob Anspach.
Oh, yes.
Rob is one of these people who's sarcastic. He's a smart ass. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And a few times I'd reach out to him and he'd say something. And he's also a Pennsylvania boy like us.
Yep.
And he actually grew up right down the road from where I grew up. So
I know that you're both in that same part of the state.
Lancaster, Lebanon. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's like what, 30 minutes apart?
Yeah. Literally.
Yeah. You guys are almost neighbors. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and another buddy, Tom Newmaster, he owns Force Packaging over there. He's been on the show as well. And you sit there, and these are actually two good friends who, I've learned to be friends with them through the years through social media. Let's start with Tom Newmaster. You may not know Tom, but Tom is, he's in the heart of Pennsylvania Dutch country. He went to the same high school as me. He played trumpet. His wife was in drumline. I knew his wife from junior high and high school, so we all know each other. And Tom just went out and started his own company called Force Packaging, doing high-end packaging from everything from potato chips to pharmaceutical companies. And he doesn't compromise. He loves Star Wars. I mean, his sons are named Luke and Ben. Hello.
All right.
And he has every Star Wars poster lined up in his office. Uh-huh. And he has this all shucks kind of down to earth way of talking. And we have such great conversations because of it. And then the opposite is Rob Anspach, who got so frustrated and mad when these scammers would call and try to rip him off that he turned them into a book series. He's writing 8 and 9 right now. Yeah. And he's actually making a hell of a lot of money from these books. And they have become so well known around the world. Some of these call centers in India and Pakistan, they actually have read his books and they go, it's you, it is you. And Rob is a good example of somebody who has made plenty of money on being who he truly is. He truly just lays it on the line. Yes, he is a smartass, and he does one of the best services to humankind. And that is when we get that direct sales, DM in our mailbox from somebody who just friended us 30 seconds ago. Yes, I hate that because it's the equivalent of cold calling today.
It's worse than cold calling. Yeah. Oh, so as a coach, how are you doing achieving your goals, Block?
Yeah.
Or hey, I do basket weaving with transcendentational meditation, and I'm in alignment with the chakras, and I'm a kick-ass business coach who's all about getting the money. And I was wondering if you'd like to hop on a Zoom real quick and let's just compare and see what our synergies are. And I say, I'd like to block you and just see what our synergies are.
I love the ones who come in. I don't know them. They friend me. I see that they have 5 or 10 of my friends in common who are high level, and they DM me and they're like, hey, how are you? I don't know you. That question is a little like, my friends ask me how I am. Okay. You don't get that.
Right. In a program I created a few months ago, the Reach Personal and Business Success Gym, which was a 3-module series I did over a course of 3 weeks. I did a whole thing about how to utilize the Facebook birthday card feature to adjust the algorithms of your feed, and also to recreate energy around your brand and renew communications. How to give and receive birthday greetings, in essence. And one of the big points I make is, unless you're already in their DMs, do not direct message them to wish them a happy birthday.
Yeah.
They've already got their mom in there. That's enough.
Yeah. I just had my 60th birthday, and I got 250, not DMs, but, posts and people wishing me.
Good for you.
Yeah. And here was the funniest part. I had some celebrities come in and wish me happy birthday for the very first time in my life. I mean, people who have 1 million followers, you know what I mean? I'm like, wait a minute. So that was funny. But most of my birthday wishes came from people I either grew up with, went to high school with, are in my circles, some of my exes. I was really surprised this year at the people who friended me or who, posted happy birthday.
Yeah. Part of what I cover in that module is how to handle it when the greetings start coming in, so you actually get more of the greetings. There is a science behind that.
Really?
You might have actually, without even realize it, accidentally stumbled upon doing it exactly as I teach it. I'd have to go back and look, and that caused some of your ex-girlfriends and your buddies from high school and your previous business partners and even a few celebrities to notice, hey, oh, it's Brad's birthday. I didn't know. Happy birthday, Brad. Enter.
Yeah, and that's all it took. And I try to respond to every one of them, believe it or not.
That's part of it right there. As I tell everybody, saying, oh, I'm so overwhelmed by all the birthday wishes. I'm sorry I can't respond to every one of them.
Yeah.
You're not too good to respond to it. I mean, if George W. Bush will respond to wedding invitations, people send him on a lark by sending a little card congratulating them on their wedding. He keeps somebody on staff to do that, but the fact that he invests enough. I'll give you another example is John Taffer, a Las Vegas local. And he is well known for responding to people who type on his threads on social media. And also he will occasionally show up and jump into conversations in places where people tag him in other threads. Now, whether he personally does it all or not, or he has somebody who pinch hits for him sometimes who knows his voice, just the fact that if I were say I was on one of the threads for Awaken Nation and I was typing something and I typed John Taffer and I tagged it and he jumped in, and then there was a reply from John Taffer. How does that make you feel?
Incredible. I'm happy he's not yelling at me.
Yeah.
And second, it's John Taffer. And for those of you who don't know who John Taffer is, he had the show Bar Rescue. I think it's still on.
Yeah, it is.
It's definitely on in reruns. And he comes in and he just redoes a bar and makes it profitable. I love that show.
Yeah.
That and Gordon Ramsay's Hell's Kitchen.
I know a couple people who have met him. In fact, a friend of mine who used to be a limo driver had him as a passenger a couple times. And by all accounts, he's actually nicer, but more sarcastic than the character he portrays on Bar Rescue. Well, he's supposed to have a really sarcastic sense of humor.
Well, if John listens to this, I want to thank him, because when I was helping to raise my nephew, with my ex-wife's nephew, I raised him as my son, Sebastian. He started. You've met Sebastian. He started watching Bar Rescue when we were living in New York, and he goes, "Hey, Uncle Brad, you got to watch this show." And he and I, when he moved to Vegas and we had an apartment together, he and I would sit down and literally binge watch 3 to 4 episodes of Bar Rescue. And we would make dinner and we'd be like, "Oh, how's he going to turn this one around?" We were really engaged in the show. So John, thank you. You bonded a family together. I just want to let you know that.
Speaking of Small World, I think you're aware that Captain Jim Palmer interviewed John Taffer on Dream Business Radio. Yeah.
I'd love to have him on my show. That'd be great.
Yeah.
I'll reach out to Jim.
Sure. And the funny thing is we hear all of these, we see some of these folks say about, excellence in podcasting and what you need to do to have a professional podcast. You got to have a soundproof studio. You have to add an addition to your house and put Dynamat in the walls. You have to have this type of microphone, and it's got to have this type of lighting and everything. And I have listened to that interview with between Jim and John several times. You know where John Taffer was? In the back of a limo on the way to the airport.
Yeah.
They timed the recording so that John could use his limo ride to monetize.
This is funny because I had Robert Scott Bell on my show.
Yeah.
And he's a doctor of naturopathic medicine. And Robert managed to get Dr. Peter McCullough, who's our top cardiologist here in the United States of America. He got him also on the way to the airport in a cab. And I just thought that was funny. It was like, we finally got him on, and they had like 20 minutes together as he was heading to the airport. And I was like, now that's a road warrior right there doing the interview. Wow. And I disagree with all these people who are like, you got to get an equalizer, you got to have a soundproof room. Denise Griffiths, a good friend of ours, she has what's the name of her podcast? Your
Partner in Success. I'll let you tell this story because I love this one.
Yeah. Denise has Your Partner in Success radio show, and it's on Blog Talk Radio. And I was on her show probably about 4 or 5 times. And
I've been there half dozen times at least.
And we started getting fans that would tune in to listen to when I was on. She had ongoing fans, but this one guy, he just loved listening to us for some reason. But through the years, I asked Denise, I just was like, so, you sound so professional, and what kind of mic do you use, and blah, blah, blah. And I went deep into it. And she goes, I just use my landline phone.
Yeah.
And I
you even almost nailed her voice. What the best part is she has been involved in this space that you and I play in for about as long as you and I have, probably as long as you have. And you were here, and you were here before me. And nobody knows what she looks like.
Nobody.
So they talk about how you have to be visible, and you have to have a video show because engagement. And meanwhile, nobody even knows what the hell she looks like. There's a picture of what is supposed to be her eyes, and she's verified that actually is a picture of that piece of her face. That's as far as anybody has ever gotten with it. I believe the current bounty is something like $50,000 for a verified and authenticated photo of her.
I will tell you this. She shared with me a photo from a long time ago.
It would have to be it's probably not current, though.
And I was very proud that she shared that with me. And I will go to my grave not sharing that photo. How's that?
I would see her as a type that would have a kill switch in place if you even dared.
Oh, yeah, she is funny. Yeah. I love her dry humor. And if you don't know who Denise is, ladies and gentlemen, I suggest you go check out her podcast as well. Your Partner in Success, and she just is a real gem, and always there, always supportive, as well. Hey, what other shows do you recommend? Because I got to tell you, I've watched you evolve into not only a great storyteller, a keynote speaker, but also a great interviewer. What was your secret? I mean, besides just, I grew into it and I evolved. You really worked at the craft.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to finish this thought about, visibility. I have 2 podcasts right now, one of which is the Business Creators Radio Show, which is one of the longest continuously running entrepreneurial podcasts on the air today. It's done, I think we're actually close to 600 episodes. And it's been on the air since September of 2013. It's always been an audio only show. The episodes are between 50 and 60 minutes long. We do have the guests submit their suggested interview questions, so I know what points to make sure to cover to shine a spotlight on and make it worth their while. But they're really mastermind conversations. So as a listener, you picture yourself being that third person sitting at a table while 2 people mastermind, and you have the back and forth and the mutual inspiration and the rising tide buoys all ships. These are my opportunities to get deep into topics, and I want to be as comfortable as possible while doing it. I will, part of the instructions for being on Business Creators Radio is, and we tell our guests this even before they log in, is the first thing when you log in is you don't turn your camera on. It's audio only. You can drink whatever you want. And I still have to tell like 80% of them before I even say hello. It's like they'll log in. I don't even say hello. I say, okay, turn your camera off. This is audio only. You can drink whatever you want. The reason being is I want folks to feel like they can go wherever they want without having to hold their media pose or feel like they're in some sort of exhibition or something. And just go deep into those areas of their mind where their intersection of their brilliance and their passion lay, and probe deep into that and bring out those penetrating insights. Really, really, really take a new direction with wherever it is they're going. Now, beyond that, and I will sometimes get a few connectors or influencers, and I already know where they're going. So I'll say, go ahead. And they'll tell me all about how if that show was on video, or if I would at least turn my camera on so they could see me while we do the interview, blah, 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 blah. And I let them finish. I say, I just don't want to. Yeah. And I bring that up because sometimes that is the answer. You may be told you're supposed to follow best practice, but if it's just not in alignment with what you do and who you are, you're not obligated. I'm so glad we brought up Denise, because this is somebody who not only doesn't do audio, doesn't have an expensive studio or anything. She uses a landline telephone for her interviews.
And no video.
And nobody knows what she looks like except for you. And you're even going off an old picture, and you're going off her saying that was her. I mean, I'm just adding a couple qualifiers there.
She may have fooled me. She may have sent
who knows,
someone else's photo.
Yeah. Now, I also have another show, it's called the Brilliance Plus Passion Project. They're 15-minute vignette episodes, and those do have a video component because A, I only have to be there for 15 minutes, and B, the purpose of those interviews is so they can send it to their mom, and their mom will finally know what they do for a living.
For years. Oh my God. My family had no idea what I did for a living. I did those big corporate events and meetings, sometimes in a ballroom, sometimes in a stadium. And I'll never forget, I was sitting with my grandparents and we're watching, I think it was one of the DNCs back in the 70s or 80s. And I just leaped up. I said, "Do you see that? You see the stage, the lights? That's what I do. The graphics in the background, And they were like, "Oh, okay, Brad."
Yeah.
And that was it. We went right back to, whatever was going on.
Well, for the longest time, I couldn't convince my family that I wasn't involved in porn.
Yeah. What's all the camera equipment?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. By the way, podcasts I love. I apologize. The nature of natural human conversation, sometimes you end up opening loops you weren't expected. So a few podcasts that I love. One of which is the Influencer's Edge podcast with speaker Paul Ross, which is about sales training, about influence, persuasion, neurolinguistic programming. That's one of our shows, actually. He's one of our clients. And you go to that show and you see some of the people in his early lineup. He had Chase Hughes, Dr. Richard Bandler, John DeLemme, Vanessa Van Edwards, and a bunch of other folks who are very, very highly positioned in that area. It's like attending a free seminar on sales, influence, and persuasion. It's amazing. Another show I really love, and because it gives you so many perspectives on the whole public speaking thing, is the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Nethling. Very high volume show, lots of great people. We have two podcasts that I love that are about ghosts. One of which is called Leap Into Your Story with Victoria Anderson, and the other is the Haunted Road Trip Show with Tracy St. Croix, that do take a realm or step into the paranormal. Right. And I love that stuff because I'm on one of those shows, and we actually discuss how me interacting with the ghosts of a controversial historical figure turned out to be the delivery vessel for one of the most powerful lessons I needed to find success as an entrepreneur. I'm not going to say who this controversial historical figure was here. I'm sorry, I can't do it. You're just going to have to go there and watch it yourself. Let's see. I have a few others. Jim Palmer's show. Dan Janelle's Write Your Book in a Flash. I can't possibly name all of them. So we're going to say those are some of the top ones, at least for right now. But anybody who wants more, just contact me and I will give you more. Excellent.
It's pretty amazing to me how the podcasting arena just took off. People may not know this, but back before television stations, we had these different platforms. Anybody could start their own TV station and get a time slot. Yeah. And so the original RCA building in New York City, those are all little radio rooms, and they converted them to TV rooms so that people could do their own shows. And then eventually the big boys came along and bought up all the most popular shows. We are seeing the same thing right now in podcasting, where anybody can start a podcast, but some of the big boys are buying up, like Spotify bought up Joe Rogan's show. And my friend Jordan Harbinger of the Jordan Harbinger Show, he just signed a multi-million-dollar deal as well. And so podcasting is hot. And how important is it? And you kind of talked about this, but how important is it to really narrow cast down into what you want to talk about? And you touched on it when you said you have your favorite shows, the paranormal show. My show, I like to believe I'm between Joe Rogan and Art Bell. And so how important is it to kind of niche yourself down into what you really want to talk about?
Well, I think it depends. And here's the best answer I can give to that, whether you should niche deep or you should have a generalist show. My answer is yes. And I'd like to remind everybody that it's not like they only have so many podcasts to hand out and you can only have one and you have to choose. You can have a podcast that has a broad range so you can speak with more people. And you can also have a narrowly focused podcast that stays on one topic. You can have both at the same time. You can have guests from one also be a guest on the other. You can have a guest only on one, but not on the other. You can have one interview guest and the other do monologues. You can have both do both. Yeah. The possibilities are actually endless. And what's beautiful about podcasting, aside from the fact that it's meta marketing, as we've already discussed, is that it gives you that flexibility. To say that you can only have one podcast and you have to make some overreaching decision that's permanent about what it's going to be and how it's going to be formatted, that's like saying we're still in the age where there are only 3 TV channels on your you can get on VHS and you have to turn a little dial every time you change the channel. Yeah. I like that answer. Me as a creative director, when I help people kind of figure out their book or whatever, I like to always say, does this have legs?
which is an advertising agency metaphor that basically harkens to, will it be lasting 20 years from now? Will this be the kind of brand that we will tune into 10 years from now? Can you still talk about that, in 5 years? I see a lot of podcasts that are named and they're niche, and they're only going to last about 5 years, and then it's going to trickle out. And whenever I sit with somebody, it's sort of like, well, if you had to do 1,000 episodes over 10 years, what do you want to talk about? And I start with, what kind of guests do you want on the show? Yeah. For me, I always wanted like Gene Simmons from Kiss, and I didn't want to talk about the rock and roll band. I wanted to talk about the business side. I did have a second podcast in mind that would just focus on business, adventures in the business world. And so I was looking into that, and I just always wanted disruptors on my show, people that were doing stuff that made you just go, holy crap. My first season, I had Dove Barron on, who fell off a cliff 120 feet to his death and lived, and now is internationally known as one of the top Inc. magazine's keynote speakers. Or Bob Berg, who wrote The Go-Giver.
Yes, Bob Berg. I love Bob Berg.
And so, I've had Dan Millman on from The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, which became a movie. And I love having the unusual stories, especially the entrepreneurs, because business stories are usually people who spent someone else's money. But entrepreneurs, I hate to say this, but they got bitch slapped and had to get back up a few times. And I had Brian Smith on from Uggs, who got kicked out of his own company after he turned it into a multi-million-dollar company and had to climb back in. I love those kind of stories.
Yeah. People love redemption. They love comebacks. They like to know. That's what I said earlier about how I share things that aren't exactly my finest hour. They love the dirt. I'm going to paraphrase a quote. I have no idea who originally said it. It was alluded to in the movie Training Day. But the quote goes something like, in order for people to believe you're clean, they've got to see you're a little bit dirty.
That's it. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I, for those of you who are listening and you're thinking about launching a podcast or writing a book or becoming an influencer, I think Adam and I are expressing probably the two of us, our innate abilities, our innate loves, our innate things. If you're a person who loves gossip, start a show on gossip. Yeah. If you're somebody who loves celebrities, start a show about celebrities. The money will follow. I got a sponsor who supports me now a little bit, and I love that. My show is not directly business driven. Okay, so it isn't like, hey, we're doing this podcast to show off what we can do for you in the business world. A lot of people, I want you to know, that's the purpose of starting your business podcast, to drive people to your business. But for someone, and Adam is a really super great example of, business podcasting, how it can get you more customers.
I've got a story I've been wanting to tell you for 5 minutes. The mastermind principle in action. We were speaking about unique type of guests. A year before the Business Creators Radio Show went on the air, I was creating something called the Business Creators Institute, which in its original iteration was a membership site where people subscribed to receive trainings, and they were all audio at the time. So my first step in creating this content was to host a bunch of teleseminars. This is back in the days when teleseminars were a thing. So very first topic was going to be on customer service strategies. And I was thinking, you know what, do I really want another customer service expert, or do I want somebody who does customer service expert in the real world? And then I thought, okay, customer service, rock star customer service. Hey, I'll interview a rock star. Yeah. And so I got a hold of my buddy Benny Mardonis, God rest his soul. His song, which we've all heard at our prom, was called Into the Night, and he was delighted to be interviewed for our audience. And I remember the people on my team saying, why are you going to get this guy to do it? Can't you get a customer service guy? No. Why do you have to feature your buddy? I mean, what the hell? Nobody's going to listen to this. They're going to laugh at you and say, what? like, but no. So that was the very first one we did was with Benny, and people tuned in and they were expecting to like, yeah, hey man, what the no. In fact, when it was over, you could almost hear a pin drop, like, holy shit. This former top 40 artist who's reinvented himself as an indie has developed this whole strategy for maintaining a lucrative career and only having to do a half dozen appearances a year. And he's got fans who would follow him into the grave willingly.
Yeah. Just
to hear one more song. I had people reach out to me say, hey, does this guy do customer service training? And I spoke with him about it. I spoke with Benny about it. He wasn't really interested.
Right.
But that is the level of impact that this had. I used the transcript of that interview as bonus content in my book, Groundhog Day is an Event, Not a Business Strategy. And when we launched the Business Creators Radio Show, wanted to get episodes up right away, we repurposed that interview as one of the first 3 episodes.
That is genius, Adam. And I love when people do that. You know, you take a subject matter and you say to yourself, well, I could get the obvious choice.
Yeah.
I could get this guy. And instead you turned around and you go, wait a minute. There's 2 people who understand customer service in this world and they're not popular. One is a drug dealer. The other is a rock star.
Yeah.
You have to deliver the very best during a live concert. Plus, you maybe have a fan base and you have to create a group and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. When you're an indie, your connection to your fans is paramount. When you release more albums, when you create more merch, when you do your handful of appearances a year, who do you think sells all that stuff out?
Yeah, and this is what I want people to understand who are listening to this and trying to get some great tips and pointers.
Yeah.
You can come up with a great idea, but you may not have the chops that me and Adam have as creative people and creative directors who do this for a living. All it takes is that one twist in the thought process, in the mastermind, to make your podcast go up a notch above everybody else immediately. And so, and by the way, those of you who don't know what a mastermind is, it was first coined by Napoleon Hill, I believe. And he said when 2 or more people get together, there's almost like a third independent brain or mind that is created.
Yes.
That brings these ideas into the fold through the members of the mastermind. And so I've done masterminds before, and I was always astounded at when somebody would present a business problem, because we rotate, we do a round robin in a mastermind so each person can have their problem solved. I was always astounded at where these crazy ideas would come from, not just me, but the members. And all of a sudden that person would walk away, their head would be spinning with ideas and they'd have to write them all down and go, holy moly, that was incredible amount of knowledge that would bring their business out of the mud and into the black. So I love that you did that. A rock star talking about customer service.
Yeah.
That's a nice little twist. Any other twists that you've done through the years like that?
I've probably had a few. What I have not yet achieved, and I should work on this, is getting a porn star to teach about customer service.
Oh yeah, or marketing even.
Yeah,
or fan base.
I'm not joking about this, because you think about it. You have a product. Let's set morality aside, because morality is subjective. That's why I say there's no such thing as a truth. There's your truth viewed through your lens. Now, for many, that's, hey, as long as everybody's consenting and on board, and there's a legitimate audience willing to pay for it, it's a legitimate business. I got no problem with that. So, but think about it, particularly in this day and age, because pornography is another thing that has become more and more decentralized, with the ability to create your own career and actually create your own portal for that on the internet. For those of you who have not heard of OnlyFans, so what does it take? What does it take to succeed? The same type of stuff. Having a good relationship with your customers, understanding what your customers are looking for, being able to create that feeling of having a direct relationship, which the big question comes up. And I have a friend of mine actually who runs an agency that helps promote OnlyFans models. So I have a little bit of an insight on this.
Right.
Is, people ask the question, why would somebody pay $9 a month to get a subscription to occasionally see topless photos when there's any variety of all-out porn available for free anytime you want it? And the answer is very simple. You don't feel connected with people in those random videos. But when you are subscribing to an actual model, an actual artist, there is that personal connection. It's all about that feeling that you know her personally, you know him personally, and vice versa.
Yeah. Well, I hate to inform people, but pornography has actually driven a lot of our new technology over the past 30 to 40 years.
Yeah. Well, how do you think I learned how to do websites? I used to pull the code from old porn sites, put it in a notepad. That's how I taught myself how to do HTML.
We had a guy when I was at K2, we didn't have anybody who could do a CD-ROM hybrid. We couldn't find anybody who could teach us because we had landed. We were actually going after a bank. I'm not going to say who, but it was a $250,000 project when we finally landed it. But we couldn't find anybody who could do a CD-ROM hybrid except a buddy who came in and very embarrassingly said, "Hey, I don't tell people I do this, but I do the porn on the side. I program for them. I do their websites and all this." And he showed us one of these CD-ROMs, and we were blown away. You know, the quality wasn't like it is today, but you had to, go through like this maze. It was like a journey, to find each of these levels. And then it would open up to a video. And that's how we were able to land this big job. I never told anybody that, but this is how we were able to land it because nobody back then was doing it. And once that took place, all corporations started doing these CD-ROM hybrids that allowed you to watch content on the CD, but launch it also to a website.
Right.
You can learn a lot, and some people out there, can be a little judgy, but the reality is whatever is happening in that industry is now going to eventually matriculate out into business world.
Yeah.
And, getting back to what you were talking about, people don't realize that Playboy magazine went the way of the dodo. It's now just, interviews. They took out the nudes because this generation has access to porn everywhere for free.
Well,
So you're right. Why?
That's half of it. Yeah, that's half of it. And the other half is, in order to maintain relevance, Playboy rebranded itself several years ago because they wanted to normalize the idea that somebody could be sitting on the light rail going to and from work, and they have their lunchbox and their Playboy out, and that's no big deal. In order to make that possible, they had to take the naked pictures out. Now my brother-in-law, and I think he's going to find out I said this because I have people in the family who follow everything I do. I don't know if he still does, but for years, and my sister knew about this, had a Playboy subscription, and he legitimately read it for the articles.
Yeah.
The articles were always there. It was always a valuable magazine that you could learn from. It just had this little extra to it, right there in the center. People
didn't realize that Playboy, getting back to whatever you feel about Hugh Hefner and all that, he basically created a lifestyle brand. The women were just kind of a part of it. Every article in Playboy was very high end, and they always attracted the very top people. Kurt Vonnegut was in Playboy. We had literary giants, politicians being interviewed.
You had Jimmy Carter interviewed by Playboy magazine. Just repeat that in your mind as many times as you need to and let it sink in. Jimmy Carter was interviewed in Playboy magazine.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying it's good or bad, or I'm not knocking in any way, shape, or form, but the reality is that now things have really changed for all brands. People can't just go shopping to a mall anymore because a mall sometimes overcharges. I can't tell you how many times my girlfriend and I will go somewhere and she goes, I can get that online for, a third of that. And we do, we go get it online for a third. We bought car parts online, big ones that get shipped to our house. We're not talking little,
Right.
I want a little handle. No, we're talking benches and, metal sent to our home. It's just, there's this entire underbelly of, it's not black market anymore. It's just another economy, the sharing economy, the free economy, and the, okay, we're going to buy it local economy, all from my phone is happening now. So you want to talk a little bit about that, because your content has to cut through this, lack of a better word, but it's a kaleidoscope coming at us of everybody doing this.
Yeah, we're going a little long here, but I'm really loving this trip down memory lane. So
sure.
The answer to your question here is, the question, I just want to make sure I understand it, is ways to use mobile technology to break through.
Yeah.
Okay. There are a lot of ways to do it. I know myself, I like to watch reels and shorts as part of my intellectual junk food. And I love particularly some of your internet celebrity cats. Like, I don't know how this happens, but I always end up being fed more and more short videos about Penny the talking cat. And Penny is actually just she's an ordinary domestic short hair cat. She is very vocal, meows all the time. So her human films her meowing, takes the sound out, and then replaces it with the human's young daughter voicing the cat, and then they have conversations.
That's funny. I like lightsaber cats. And anything Star Wars or Star Trek, I'll watch. And I like videos of people falling or having accidents.
Yeah. That meme that you have where you have the two women from that reality show pointing at the white cat, and the white cat sitting behind a plate with that smug look on his face. Yeah. Well, that's also an influencer cat. His name is Smudge. He has his own brand.
Oh, wow. I got to check that out. I follow Cat Turd on Twitter.
Well,
very political.
Yeah. Well, on Twitter, Cat Turd, I'm quite familiar with. He's actually a Florida man, and who has an avatar of a cat. He doesn't exactly reveal his identity, but I know he guests on political podcasts, and he also does animal rescue. So if you really pay attention to his feeds, every so often he'll show some of his, I think he calls them the kitten turds. He has a whole litter of kittens right now he's fostering.
My entire month was made when Grumpy Cat started following me years back.
I remember. I met her once.
Oh, wow. That's incredible.
Yeah, she came to Las Vegas. I went to the event where she was at, and I remember having to stand in line. We all had to be very quiet so we didn't upset her. And the rules were, you can lean in and get close to her when you get your photo with her, but you cannot touch her and you cannot interact directly with her because they didn't want her to be whacked out. Yeah. Now, when I have the photo somewhere and I'm leaning into her and she's just napping. Yeah. And however, right before the picture was taken, she turned her face up at me and gave me a look that was so grumpy, it makes her photos look cheerful.
That's funny.
And then she just kind of turned her head away and put it down. It's as if she was saying to me, "Get your fucking picture and get out."
Yeah. Well, Adam, thank you so much for being on today's show. How do people get a hold of you, by the way? Where should they go to?
Well, I have there are a number of social medias out there with my name on them, but the only two that really are where you'd want to connect with me are LinkedIn and Facebook. So if you do choose to connect with me there, do not DM me with a bunch of spam, but however, do please leave a pithy message in the DMs that say, "I heard you on Awakened Nation with Brad Zollis, and it was freaking awesome." and that'll show me this person's not a spammer. This person's legit. This is somebody I want to speak with. So I'm just letting you right now, that is a clue to how you actually get attention in the DMs. You don't spam people. You don't ask them a bunch of dumb questions. You just say something like outright, hey, I heard you on Awakened Nation. Wanted to connect. That's fine. Or, hey, nice to meet you. I have a podcast. We're always looking for great guests. Yeah. As far as other things, I would encourage people to visit my various websites. I'm going to give you folks who are interested in podcasting a little gift. Go to www.thereachsystem.com, www.thereachsystem.com/resources. And we have a whole bunch of them there for you, all completely free. You can check those out. We deal with different areas of podcasting, and I usually add about one every quarter. So be sure to keep checking that out. I would love to connect with as many folks as possible because I believe that a rising tide buoys all ships.
I agree. Adam, thank you so much. And last question in closing. What do you see as the future for yourself?
Future for myself. This is a really good one. Are we talking about my ultimate dream?
Yeah. What's your ultimate dream?
My goal ultimately is to have a lifestyle that allows me to have residences in a few different cities simultaneously and travel between them without luggage. They would all be small apartments with 24-hour swimming pools attached. I
agree.
And of course, balconies. But that's all I need.
If you know Adam, those are the two things he needs.
Yes.
Thank you, my friend, for being on Awakened Nation. I really, really appreciate our time together. And we're going to be hanging out more when I get back to Vegas. So thank you for being on the show today.
Adam Hommey.
Brad Zales. Hey, everybody. Tune in next week for another extraordinary guest here on Awakened Nation. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for being a big part of the Awakened Nation movement. This is how you can help me and our extraordinary guests. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please share it out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And let's grow this movement by word of mouth. Our success will be because of you. Thank you, and see you next week.